Welcome back to Investing Talk podcast. Today we're taking a close look at SEALSQ Corp.
That's right. We've got a recent due diligence report, some corporate and market updates, and a stock analysis to unpack for you. Should give you a pretty comprehensive snapshot of the company.
Our mission here is really to pull out the key insights, help you understand what makes SEALSQ tick, especially with everything moving so fast in semiconductors and quantum tech. Okay, so let's get into their financials first. Fiscal year 2024. Revenue was $11 million. And what seems important here is that this number reflects their shift, their transition towards these next-gen quantum-resistant chips.
That's a really key point. I mean, that dip, it might look a bit concerning initially, maybe,
Right.
but it seems to signal a deliberate strategic pivot. They're kind of trading short-term numbers, maybe, to get positioned in this quantum-resistant market.
What do you think about that move?
Well, look, while $11 million in FY24 isn't huge, they are anticipating a return to growth in FY25. They've got $6.8 million in confirmed bookings already as of late March.
Okay, so that suggests the transition might be starting to, gain some ground.
It could point to a strong upward trend if their new stuff finds market acceptance.
Now, the reports we looked at, they don't give specific EPS or PE figures, that kind of thing. But it is interesting. Total liabilities, about $19.7 million against almost $98 million in assets.
Yeah, that does suggest fairly low debt levels, relatively speaking.
Seems like a stable foundation, wouldn't you say?
It does look that way. And backing that up is their cash position end of FY24. Pretty strong, around $85 million.
$85 million cash. That gives them flexibility, right?
What?
Especially for investment during this transition.
For sure. Flexibility for things like R&D.
And speaking of R&D, they've earmarked $7.2 million for it in FY 2025. That's up from $5 million in 2024.
That's a pretty significant increase. It really shows they're serious about the innovation side.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Their business, where they fit in the industry, what's their main thing?
Their focus is quite specific, which is interesting. They're developing and selling semiconductors, PKI, public key infrastructure, and post-quantum technology, both hardware and software.
PKI. So that's about managing digital keys encryption, sort of the bedrock of current online security.
That's it. So their involvement there suggests they're looking at current needs too, not just future quantum threats, bolstering existing systems potentially.
So it's not just pie-in-the-sky future tech. It connects to now.
Exactly. And their competitive advantage seems to lie in that focus on the emerging quantum-resistant sector, these post-quantum cryptography initiatives.
Why is that so critical right now, post-quantum cryptography?
Well, think about the bigger picture. There's this growing worry, right, that future quantum computers could just break today's encryption.
The stuff everything relies on online?
Pretty much. Current encryption uses math problems that are super hard for today's computers. But quantum computers, they might solve them, relatively easily. Post-quantum cryptography is about developing new methods that are safe even from those future machines.
So SEALSQ is trying to get ahead of that curve.
That seems to be the strategy, positioning for future demand.
Makes sense. But what challenges might they face? It can't be smooth sailing.
No, definitely not. The sources mention risks like regulatory changes, the sheer speed of tech development here.
And competition, I assume?
And competition, naturally. But on the flip side, they apparently benefit from some strategic exemptions on semiconductor imports. That could be a real operational plus.
Okay, let's talk recent events, market reactions. The stock sounds like it's been active.
You could say that. They announced a $20 million registered direct offering not long ago. 10 million shares at $2 a share. Expected to close around early May.
$20 million. What's the plan for that cash infusion?
It's earmarked for strategic investments. Things like their Quantix Edges joint venture, buying ICALPS, and pushing their post-quantum semiconductor tech forward.
So feeling that innovation engine we talked about.
Seems like it. It's all about accelerating things.
And they have their annual general meeting coming up soon, May 19th in New York.
Correct. Investors will definitely be watching that for updates.
And yeah, the stock price itself. Quite the swings lately.
Definitely. There was a sharp drop, nearly 15%, on May 5th. Reports linked it to rising competition.
But just before that.
But earlier that week, it jumped almost 10%. That was apparently on speculation about potential new contracts.
Wow. Shows how sensitive it is to news and sentiment in this space.
Very much so. And trading volume picked up quite a bit in late April. Hit a peak of $2.86 on May 1st, then pulled back a little.
So definitely on investors' radar screens.
Seems that way.
The report notes they're in a competitive field, cybersecurity, semiconductors, but mentions blockchain integration as a potential plus. How might that help?
Well, blockchain, its security features, its immutability, that could potentially strengthen their cybersecurity offerings, maybe.
What's more robust?
Possibly. Or in semiconductors, perhaps it could improve supply chain security or transparency, something that could set them apart, potentially.
Worth watching. Now, what about the people running the show? Management, governance.
The sources we reviewed today don't really go into the CEO's background or insider trading activity.
Okay.
But, that kind of information is usually out there in SEC filings, the investor relations section on their website. Worth digging into for anyone doing deeper research.
Good point. So let's think about valuation and risks. We don't have a price to book or beta figure here, and they don't pay dividends.
No dividends currently. And what's really crucial to understand, I think, is how much their success hinges on these quantum and post-quantum technologies actually taking off.
Technologies that are still evolving.
It's still very much evolving. So
Yeah.
that reliance on emerging tech, it naturally brings a significant amount of risk for investors.
And just the practical side of things, actually making these new quantum-resistant chips at scale, ensuring quality, that could present challenges too, couldn't it?
Absolutely. It's not just about the cool science. It's about the manufacturing, the logistics, all of that. Operational hurdles are certainly possible.
So how do they stack up against others? Peers? Industry trends?
It's a little tricky. They're in such a specific niche. Comparing them directly to, say, broad semiconductor giants might not be that helpful. Could even be misleading.
So better to look elsewhere for comparisons.
The report suggests looking at companies specifically in quantum computing or maybe cybersecurity might give you a more relevant picture.
Okay.
And their moves, acquisitions, investments in post-quantum crypto, they definitely seem to fit with the broader industry trend. There's a growing recognition that we need solutions for a post-quantum world.
Right. Now, there was an interesting angle in the sources about recent Middle East deals and potential indirect effects. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, that was interesting. It specifically mentioned a $1 billion investment in quantum computing. It was Qatar's Al Raban Capital, partnering with Honeywell's Quantinuum.
Okay, but SEALSQ wasn't directly involved in that particular deal.
No, not directly mentioned. But the point is, it shows massive global interest and, importantly, investment pouring into the quantum space overall. It's a huge vote of confidence from major international players. Signals how important this field is becoming.
So even if SEALSQ wasn't part of that specific deal, this rising tide of investment could lift all boats, so to speak, create a better environment for them.
That's a reasonable way to look at it. It could mean a bigger market, maybe more partnership opportunities down the road for companies focused on quantum resistance.
And the fact these kinds of big tech investments were happening during that Middle East tour?
It suggests a broader governmental international focus on these advanced technologies, AI, quantum, etc. That overall ecosystem growth could definitely benefit companies operating within it, like SEALSQ.
Okay, so let's try to tie all this together. Based on these reports, what's the overall picture? Maybe a summary thought.
Well, pulling it all together, SEALSQ looks like fundamentally a speculative play. It's operating in this really fast-moving quantum and post-quantum tech sector.
Speculative, okay. Strengths.
Strengths seem to be that sharp focus on innovation, and they do have that solid cash position we talked about.
And the flags, the risks.
The big ones are that dependence on still developing technologies and the potential bumps in the road as they make this industry transition.
So the outlook based on this?
Based on this info, it suggests maybe a hold for current investors, for new investors. A cautious buy, but only if you've got a high tolerance for risk and you're looking long-term at this emerging tech potential.
So for you, the listener, what's the takeaway here? SEALSQ is working in a fascinating area. High potential, yes, but also, let's be clear, high risk. Their bet on quantum-resistant tech could pay off significantly down the line, but it's definitely a journey with real uncertainties.
And that recent stock volatility, the fundraising, it just underscores how dynamic this whole situation is. But those big global investments in quantum we mentioned, they do signal real momentum in the space. That could create genuine opportunities for companies like SEALSQ that are positioned for it.
Which brings us to a key question to keep in mind. How effectively can SEALSQ actually navigate all this? The competition, the rapidly changing tech. How well can they capitalize on this growing interest in quantum security?
It's certainly one to watch closely.
We definitely encourage you to do your own further research, maybe look into their upcoming AGM details, or just keep tracking developments in the broader quantum industry.
Absolutely. Stay informed.
And if you found this discussion helpful, please do subscribe, like, and maybe leave us a comment. Thanks for joining us on Investing Talk Podcast.